Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari says he's sending a special envoy to South Africa to tell President Cyril Ramaphosa about his concerns after the violence against Nigerian nationals here. There's been a huge reaction to what's happened over the last few days, with shops being looted. 5 people have been killed in the violence. Phil Ihaza is our correspondent in Abuja in Nigeria. Phil, good evening to you. What's the government of Nigeria saying? They're clearly very worried about this tonight.
Well, thank you. Indeed, the government of Nigeria is worried. Several voices there, from the presidency to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because there's been a series of reactions from Nigerians home and abroad about the spate of attacks on foreign nationals, mainly Nigerians, in South Africa. There was a meeting, between the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyema, and the South African ambassador or South Africa High Commissioner, Mr. Monroe, in Abuja here today. And the takeouts from that meeting would be that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyema, stated, as part of his proposals that was sent to the government of South Africa, 3 major things here. The first one is that they are demanding compensation to a series of foreign nationals, that's Nigerians living in South Africa, that were affected by these attacks in recent days. Also on clarity of what kind of security will be provided for both the Nigerian citizens living in South Africa and the Nigerian embassy in South Africa. And the third is that he is saying that there will be possible discussions on how Nigerians will be sending extra security to work with the South African security and see how more truce can, be achieved, to also see how that better understanding on the part of both countries will be in place to ensure that these attacks are killed and halted once and for all.
Well, it's interesting to note how it's being reported in Nigeria, how it's being seen by the leaders in Nigeria. Here in South Africa, there's been no claims that I'm aware of that Nigerian nationals in particular have been targeted. We don't yet have the nationalities of the 5 people who died, but there doesn't yet seem to be any evidence that most of them are Nigerian. And yet in Nigeria, as you say, it seems to be almost seen as if this is about anti-Nigerian sentiment rather than what our leaders say, which is rampant criminality.
Well, I would agree with you if you put it that way, because the South African High Commissioner, Mr. Monroe, also stated that during the meeting, saying that this is more of sporadic attacks on foreign nationals, not basically xenophobic attacks on Nigerians. But you know that because you would recall that there's been history of xenophobic attacks on Nigerians in South Africa since 2008, where it was at its peak. And that's the reason why, and of course some statements on social media and the rest of them inciting even more violence, especially on Nigerians living, Nigerian community in South Africa and those at home. Even as we speak in Nigeria, there are reports of some reprisal attacks on certain businesses of South Africa operating in Nigeria, although the police has come out to say that they are ensuring adequate security to those properties. So it's more like the history now coming back, and Nigerians are not even willing to listen because they are getting maybe a few reports there of some Nigerians being a part of it, but officially, yes, as you said, we haven't gotten such reports yet.
Phil, I'm just receiving information. We understand there are 1 or 2 reports of attacks on a South African shop in Lagos. Also, of course, MTN has big operations in Nigeria. Are you hearing those reports, or are there calls for companies, South African companies, to be targeted in Nigeria? Have you heard of any attacks on South African companies or shops there yet?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, that there are reprisal attacks in Nigeria as we speak, because there's several Nigerians reacting on social media calling for several businesses in Nigeria that's operated by South Africans to be closed. You're talking MTN, you're talking DSTV, but specifically what we know at the moment is that we're getting local reports at the moment from Lagos that a ShopRite installment somewhere around the Lekki region has been several people were there for hours protesting, even with the presence of police, and we're getting news that one person was shot dead. We're not sure how the person was shot dead. But that must have caused the uproar where people had to destroy or make their way into the complex. Whether they've successfully gained access into the ShopRite complex, we're not sure yet, but we're getting several reports that we need to confirm. I'm sure that we're still monitoring it, and in a moment we'll be able to clarify.
Phil Ihaza, thanks very much indeed, SABC correspondent in Abuja tonight. All right, so just to clarify then, some reports, it seems, as you heard Phil there, suggesting that a ShopRite store, branch of ShopRite in Nigeria, had actually been stormed. We will try and get clarification and proper confirmation of those developments for you here on The Full View. Stay with us, plenty more to come.